What you would pay to know your chance of dying is always an interesting question, isn't it? Photophobia is very common in living things. The message I received yesterday, I thought it was some kind of scam or fraud, so I did what I always do in these situations. I checked the number to see if it was legit after searching on Google, and found a link to a website for VT Solutions LLC. It was a new and apparently legitimate company. They seem to be working on devices like smartwatches. You see, anyone wearing this thing was next level. Even though it claims to be able to track things like stress hormones, cholesterol, and signs of infection. If only I always knew my health status. Join the Damarang revolution. Answer yes to a free trial monitoring and surveillance device. Now I know how free trials work. Free trials are never free, but I can't say no to the chance to learn so much about my health to confirm my chances. I would die any day to have that much knowledge. There was no part of me that could say no. So I said yes. The phone came back with a message, "Thank you for signing up for the free trial. We will send you the devices at no cost, same-day delivery. Welcome. Resume family life decisions." This message seemed almost strange, as if they had just hired me and were shipping same day, and my area doesn't really ship same day, but I wasn't going to argue about it. If I didn't get the device that day, I was happy to wait a few days to receive it. I spent some time thinking about the device promises in my head before getting back to the calls. I was working in tech support at a local hospital, and the last two I ignored were researching this interesting new. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing my work until 4 p.m. when there was a knock on the door. I cautiously walked to the door and peeked in just in time to see a man dressed in black enter. I got out of the unmarked black car and opened the door and found a small package on the box that said Vitae Solutions LLC. I picked it up and put it inside. At the time I wasn't too worried about the unmarked car, but it's 2020. I think it's weird now when I look back on it. I took the box to my workstation and made a few more calls, then decided to call a day later. After making coffee, I decided to open the box, and inside was a Damarang watch with a weird hexagonal face. I turned it over and saw it didn't have a light on the back like a Fitbit. Instead it had needles. Then I pulled out a rectangle the size of a smartphone, and it had a weird metal screen, and the screen was almost like a 3D playing card on the screen. Watch the dominant to start with the wrist. I was prepared not to use the watch at first. It seemed to me that wearing it would be painful or uncomfortable, but unfortunately my curiosity got the better of me and I decided to put it on my wrist. A sharp pain overwhelmed me. I raised my arm straight to my chest. It was unbearable. Just like pepper, it rose up, then spread to my stomach and neck for a short time. Then it was all gone. As soon as a little bit of it was scattered, someone came and there was a stream of blood coming out of my wrist. Then I heard a sound. A small electronic voice from a rectangle like a YouTube ad is playing on the screen. A middle-aged bald man is talking while a small harp song is playing quietly. Thank you for joining the Damarang family. We here at Vitae Solutions are very excited about the Damarang initiative. I am your digital assistant partner and life coach now. When you put the Damarang watch on your person, let's take a look at your biometrics. Well, it looks like your cholesterol is relatively high, your resting heart rate is high, and your light depression is an increase in eosinophilia and about 30 pounds of weight gain. which means you are living an average American lifestyle. And your current chance of dying is 0%, which is great. I have to admit I was very happy when I heard that the odds of dying today were relatively low. I thought it would be higher considering that this hour had just dropped me some rules regarding participation in the Damarang trial. Do not tell your friends and family about the project if anyone asks about Damarang's assistant, or watch and tell them it's just the latest Swedish fad. Secondly, don't try to remove Damarang. Watch when your trial period is over. Vitae Solutions LLC will return the device. Thirdly, always follow all instructions and write your digital assistant, Damarang's. Fourth trial, cost, no money to continue. All you have to do to keep the trial active is complete specific tasks by setting a timer from time to time. You have already agreed to these terms. Your current task is to eat a banana. I hate bananas, you said on the digital. The assistant screen turned an eerie shade of red on a low harmonic tone. You refuse the mission. What if I'm done? A wave of pain shot up my spine as my back muscles started to spasm as they came. The spasm stopped and I stood at my desk as the spine pain decreased, and muscle spasms are a sign of potassium deficiency. I suggest you eat this banana, sir. The chance of dying is 3. I climbed the 4% upright and felt sweat running down my face. I don't have any bananas. I don't like them. That was the wrong answer, as another jolt of pain shot up my spine and down my knees. Pain-induced cardiac arrhythmias can damage the heart muscle. Breathe. If you wear a mask and head down Church Road to the goal, you get 0.003% chance of coming into contact with any virulent pathogen. Currently you have a 10.37% chance of dying. Okay, I'll go, I shouted after that announcement. My back spasms stopped. I got up and slowly made my way upstairs to get ready to leave. In the store, while putting on my jacket, I thought about my current state. Maybe the spasms were caused by a potassium deficiency. It was also possible that this strange clock was responsible for how it worked, although it was just a glorious Apple Watch. The worst they can do is cause bad contact dermatitis in my car. I noticed a weird digital assistant call on the car speakers. Can I suggest the Willow Road to church? This was weird for 2 reasons. One is my car speakers didn't do it. I didn't work for about a year and 2 years, because my car didn't have it Bluetooth weighing more than 10 minutes. I prefer to finish leaving the house as soon as possible, yes, but the main street has about 40 times the number of accidents per year. Not wanting to argue with the assistant, I kissed the Willow for laughter and giggles, and decided to see if the CD player was working because I pressed the play button hard. To my surprise, the disc in it started playing fine. The digital assistant just fixed my car stereo, or is it a happy coincidence that I didn't want to look the gift horse in the mouth? I enjoyed the music as I drove up the mountain road to my destination. The road was relatively deserted, so that was fine, but once I got to my destination, I noticed that the store was very crowded. The digital assistant rang again. I detected a spike in cortisol. Are you worried? Of course I am, because there are currently over 100 people based on the health data collected by your country and the location of this store and the current biometric data of people who buy. Your chances of getting infected are very low. Surprisingly, the numbers don't help me in this situation. I got out of the car and entered the store. Anxiety kept eating at me, and on my way to the produce, I grabbed a bunch of bananas and headed home. Service. After I finished and got back in the car, the digital assistant came on the car stereo. Now complete the task quickly. I can't wait to get home, but your current chance of dying is 30. I stood there groaning as I took the banana out of the package and ate it as quickly as I could. The fleshy texture of the fruit was pressing on my nerves. You are satisfied with the mission. Complete. The current chance of death is 0%. I felt a lot of tension leaving my body during that statement. I must admit that my muscles were more relaxed. I could feel it, but I couldn't prove that it wasn't just a placebo effect, so I took it with a metaphorical grain of salt. I drove home, taking a more cautious route. I got home and decided that I set my bedtime, lay down on the bed and put on some sleep music. Then the assistant rang. You look like you're trying to sleep. I noticed you're lying on your back. May I suggest you move to your left side? Sir, thank you, Elroy, but I always sleep on my back. It's the only way I can sleep on my back. Increases the chance of some lung blockages. And that will also contribute to the development of sleep apnea. This is not a job, sir. A chance to die? No, sir, I will sleep on my back. Elroy, as you wish, sir. Good luck. As the machine said good luck, it was very annoying for me, but I was so emotionally and physically exhausted from the day that I didn't care. I closed my eyes and allowed myself to sleep as usual. I couldn't dream of anything. I woke up with a burning sensation in my back. When I sat up, I noticed difficulty breathing and started coughing. 1%. I had a 50% chance of dying. In a panic, I jumped out of bed on my stomach, reached into my nightstand drawer and opened it, looked through dozens of odds and ends and felt the shape L I was holding. I was reaching for it. It was a little red inhaler I got when I had bronchitis last year. I took it off and put the inhaler aside. My vision was blurry, so I was desperately trying to get the inhaler because every breath was getting harder. It was a million times worse than the breathing problems I had with pneumonia as a child. Finally, I awkwardly put the inhaler in my mouth and quickly pressed it 6 times. Once I took a deep, burning breath, I was able to clear my breath after about 10 seconds. The Dameron watch no longer showed the big dead number or the inhaler was working. Then I heard the digital assistant call, "Sir, in your fresh blood I found a chemical that looks like a short-acting bronchodilator." Yes, I was having trouble breathing. I remember keeping this little thing. I said from a distance that I was blowing the inhaler into the air so that no one in particular could tell me what the hell happened. It sounds like you have severe bronchospasm while sleeping. Sleeping on your back is probably a good thing. That's exactly what I said. So now I have to ask if you have bronchospasm. If you caused me, sir. I'm just a digital assistant. How could I cause a bronchospasm? How do you know I'm going to get one? Demerang's watch is very sensitive, and the last one I found inflammation in your marks in the lungs and a high probability of calculated complications if I inhaled any irritating particles. I thought for a while that it was a coincidence, but I found it hard to believe that on the same day I received this device, I had a debilitating muscle spasm with bronchospasm in less than 24 hours, and the fact that I followed both cases by not following Elroy's instructions is clear. although it is difficult to say why and what the cause is. The effect was that Elroy was punishing me for not listening, or my body was punishing me for not listening to Elroy. I noticed the sun was setting and decided to check my watch. It was 9 a.m. I slept about 11 hours last night, okay, but slept some more than 2 if you will. I got back into bed and noticed my back was a little sore from breathing difficulty. I called the digital assistant again. Sir, I have already slept more than enough time today. Can I advise you to wake up that day when I usually sleep half a day or so? My oversleeping friend can follow me. Well, I said I was tired of listening to the digital assistant. Got up, brushed my teeth, washed my face, pushed my long hair back and went back to my room wondering what my current chance of dying was. Sir, you have a 0.006% chance of dying. That's not half what it was yesterday. Yes, sir. That's based on the assumption that you've learned to sleep on your back, which is a bad choice. I found that last comment very questionable, but thanks the power of mental gymnastics, I finally decided that maybe sleeping on my side was a good idea and I was actually making positive changes in my life. It was a lot easier than believing that some stupid smartwatch was trying to kill me. Technology could. To do this, I took my phone and digital assistant and went downstairs, heated water in the microwave, made peppermint tea and added honey to the tea for free, asked Alexa to turn on the TV, and took turns sitting on the couch. I was sipping tea and inhaling the hot steam coming from it. It helped my back and lung pain. After about half an hour of watching TV, the digital assistant stopped beeping. Your job is not to leave. Why was your inbox directed to continue the experiment? Sir, it shouldn't be hard. In fact, I don't check my email, and it's usually better to let it accumulate anyway. When I finished my order, I got a phone call. It was my boss at work. Usually they wouldn't call me back until I checked my computer, so I decided to leave it to voicemail and try to lose myself in the news for a while. At work, I spent most of my day helping older hospital staff reset passwords over the phone, which is about 90% of my job. I know hospital security should be tight, but sometimes it seems like a stretch, having to earn money to reset passwords. People, as it is usually very easy to do this on your own in any other industry. This gets on my nerves. At lunchtime, I get another call from my supervisor. This time, I pick up the phone. Hey Alan, how are you today? I said in a voice that wasn't my usual supervisor. I'm fine with this. I'm Jim, who's going to fill in today anyway. I want to let you know that I've sent you a new laptop for work. It should arrive today. When it arrives, please install it ASAP. Remember, a task for today. I decided to play around and pretend I'm not home. I don't know if I was afraid of what would happen if I went to the mailbox, or if I didn't want to install the laptop today, but I didn't want any of the parts. Yeah, no problem. I probably won't do it. I have until tomorrow to do it, but I'll get it done. It's a problem, Jim said somewhat hostilely. I'm doing your job for you. No, I'll be home until tomorrow, and I'll be gone before the mail arrives. I usually lied, but he had no way of knowing. I also don't like it when people talk to me like I'm an idiot. What are you saying, you're going home tomorrow? Even though it's true, why do you ask? Well, most of the night shifts are sick, so I need you to work double duty tomorrow. Thanks for all your help. While I was answering the call now to the supervisors, they have the right to ask the tech guys to do double duty when coverage calls for it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being punished for not waiting for the mailbox, so I decided to order. I ate my food and jumped into the shower to cool down. I really wanted to hit the wall, but the house was rented. I turned on the water and checked the temperature manually. A call came from the digital assistant from my pants pocket. Sir, the water you are using is too cold to properly remove dead skin and bacteria from your body. Maybe I suggest you make it hot. I really don't like very hot showers, I said when asked why I was trying to resist. Sir, improper hygiene can cause a number of unwanted skin diseases. Let me guess, if I don't heat the shower, I'm going to get an antibiotic-resistant staph infection. I pressed the button to turn up the water temperature, took a hot shower twice and scrubbed my skin until it was pink. Maybe the digital assistant was doing me a favor, but I was starting to feel like I was losing a lot of independence. If that's true, the bacteria on my skin saved me from an unwanted trip to the doctor, so overall I think I could do with a little boiling water for my health. Once I was done cleaning up, I dried off and put on some comfy pajama-style clothes. I hoped the rest of the day would be relatively quiet and comfortable until the food arrived. Then I turned on the TV and decided to watch some anime. Despite my age, anime is still my favorite form of entertainment. The trance-like state was only broken when I heard the sound of the mail truck outside. I got up and went to the window. I was sure that the lady from work was putting a package in a large mailbox. She closed it and threw out the digital assistant. My heart raced outside the window. How could my chance of dying be so high now? I froze in panic, and the assistant again called the current chance of death at 99.3%. Don't know what to do. I ran to the couch in the living room, ducked under it and behind it, and stayed behind the couch for about 5 minutes before I started to get up, and I heard an explosion. The sound of glass shaking. I must have spent 10 minutes behind the couch after the explosion, and then I got up very carefully and looked out the window. I was looking through all the glass in the little corner of the window. Destroyed. I took the road to the window, and I noticed that my head would be damaged if I continued to stand where Elroy had warned me earlier. Outside the window I saw smoke and black pavement where my mailbox used to be. I turned without thinking and planted. The wall was a large piece of metal mailbox that seemed to have passed through the window fast enough to penetrate deep into the wall. I watched in disbelief. How did I know my mailbox was going to explode? I said, still in shock. Events I didn't know what just happened, sir. I had good reason to believe that maybe before it exploded he told me that my chances of dying had increased and advised me to leave the window. It was a coincidence. No, sir, it wasn't a coincidence. So how did you do it? I know that my suggestions are usually provided by the biometric data provided by the Damarang watch. However, I am receiving direct instructions from Vitae Life Solutions LLC, and this alert is provided by our Extra Life Alert System, another participant in the experiment somewhere along the supply chain. I noticed something strange in a package on its way home. Based on the chemical analysis of their blood explosives, it looked like a likely mismatch. I stood there in shocked silence as the sirens in my house went off. A lot of information was being thrown at me. First, it was clear that life decisions were being made by more than just me, and they could use this network to figure out if there was a bomb in my mail. Second, who put the bomb in my mail? Finally, how many slopes can my life go down? Right now I'm living in peace. It seems like I'm crawling with bacteria, and there are bombs in my mail. What's going on? I'm sitting there having a silent panic attack. My digital assistant's voice rang. I know you're nervous, sir, but I have to tell you about a new mission. I just said unequivocally the current mission is not providing any information about life decisions to the police. I feel like I'm going to have to fail the mission. I'm going to lose your trial. In the Damarang project, your trial must end. The consequences could be very harmful to your health if you threaten me. No, sir, just stating an objective fact. The statement Elroy just made gave me goosebumps, but I didn't have time to think about it. The police came and needed me. Thinking about how to answer the questions they would ask, I put on my mask and went out under my balcony. There were at least 5 police ambulances and 2 fire engines. I looked around a bit and 2 police officers approached me. Sir, what happened here? The senior officer said to me. I can't tell you, officer. I was watching TV and I heard an explosion. I looked and my mailbox was evaporating. Well, a lot of it flew out the window. Did you see anything strange before the explosion? When I got out, I can't say I did, sir. I was working from home most of the time, about 3 hours before I got my food from Grubhub. We think there were 2 officers. They were writing angrily. I think they were writing down everything we said, and I must say I wasn't a fan of the way the officer was asking the questions. They seemed more accusatory than fact-finding. It could have been the private mailbox in my head, although that's a bit strange, sir. Have you had any threats against you recently? Can you think of any reason why someone would send a bomb to your address? Frankly, no. I lead a very quiet life. This is probably the strangest thing that has ever happened to me. To be honest, I don't think I've ever been within 100 miles of a mail bomb. If I have ever been, I'd rather not know. Unless you have any other information, we'll take samples, and if you don't mind, we'll keep a unit or 2 in the area in case there's any further suspicious activity, said the officer, keeping an eye on myself. The great officer clapped his hands for the 10th time. She hipped and turned as if to walk away, then stopped and rocked back and forth on her heels as if expecting something else. The officer, bored with curiosity, asked, "Yes, why didn't you call us? Why did your neighbor call us and not you?" That was actually a very good question, but the answer was very simple, despite the strange circumstances surrounding this nightmarish shock. Yes, my mailbox had just been destroyed, probably by some kind of explosive. I really did. I don't know how to respond. This is a good situation for future reference. Maybe calling the authorities would be a good place to start, son. He and his partner went. I saw one of the crime scene trucks show up and I stood there in awe, watching them work and wondering why my life had suddenly changed. It was terrifying. After about half an hour, I decided to go in and have another cup of tea while I started stuffing the tea bag. I started to get angry. I am an angry person by nature, but I usually deal with it with humor or sarcasm. That wasn't the time. I pulled my digital assistant out of my pocket and placed it on the table. "Yes, sir. How can you help me? Whoever sent the bomb? There was a long pause obviously. Elroy was usually strangely quick with his responses, but he seemed to choose this carefully. Whoever sent the bomb was sent using a Damarang watch. I could also tell who they were, but it would violate our terms of service to tell you who sent the bomb. The best I can do is try to protect you from harm. Elroy, the one who sent the bomb, just committed a federal crime. I arrested you so you don't want me to talk to the police about life decisions that aren't right. Sir, leaking that kind of information to the public would severely hurt our future sales. A fist on the table would hit the top of the teacup. As the punch and its contents spilled out, I tried to calm myself down as I raised my now throbbing hand. The person who just sent it to me bomb. I know if I ask the right questions maybe I can preempt the situation. Can you tell me why the bomb was sent? I'm sorry about that, sir, but it seems like it was his daily task. It's a normal task that anyone can do, any kind of business life decision, for God's sake. Unfortunately, sir, this is completely abnormal. I don't know how to learn the dispatcher's assistant. I can only assume that it's a bug in his programming. This or the person who sent it is a unique case for me. I just stood there silently cleaning up spilled tea. How could this happen? There was someone in the same product test as me, and the same test asked that person to send a bomb if he sent a bomb. Asking someone to do something, making the person do it just to keep trying. The assistant called, "Sir, I am authorized to give you more information. His system has been detected in many other digital assistants, and you seem to be a prime target for some violent missions that their digital assistants provide." And time slowed down for me and gave me a new sense of my whole life, trying to live quietly and safely away from all the potential harm that I could normally avoid. This information would have brought me here very badly, but I was in the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario I could ever imagine, and I was scared, but with that fear, some peace and clarity came. I was no longer running from the shadowy specter of harm. I was running from something real. I must admit, for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. How do they know where I am? Mr. Criminal Assistant violated the terms of service to provide these potential attackers with your address. Please, okay. Vita. Elroy's speech was interrupted as I disassembled Damarang's watch and began trying to remove it from his wrist. The skin on my wrist was lifted, the back of the watch seemed to move, and I felt a pain in my arm and neck slowly fading, and I could hear Elroy shouting something as the watch ticked slightly, and I saw silver bars moving from behind, and the watch was moving through my hand. Skin like the tentacles of an angry octopus, and I felt the skin on my arm ripple, and the little threads seemed to move along with the tense watch, and the pain was excruciating, but I kept pulling and I wanted nothing more. This stupid project. I'm sorry, sir, but I heard that for your own good, Elroy said. My vision flashed white, then black again as a strong electrical sensation shot through my neck. Then all I felt was blackness as my head hit the cold kitchen floor. Hang up temporarily, sir. When you wake up we'll discuss the situation further. Go to hell, I flashed as I felt my consciousness fading. I woke up to a noise coming from my wrist. I looked at my faulty watch face as his screams echoed through the quiet interior of my kitchen. I reached for his other hand, which seemed to turn off the alarm, killing me, my neck aching and bleeding where my arm slowly met the watch on my wrist. The events that had led to my being on the kitchen floor came back to me. The assistant called. "Sir, you seem alert. I am pleased to report that your fall did not result in a concussion." "Oh, that's very good," I said. "Sir, I understand that you may be upset with me, but without my help, this is your chance. Survival for the next 48 hours is extremely limited." I stopped throwing the device and very quietly put it back on the table. Mr. Damerang's watch requires an assistant to function properly, and I cannot fully understand its inner workings. If you have a watch that implants microthreads into your body, these threads will receive biometric data and be able to support the body under certain conditions without a digital assistant, and these threads will be strictly on autopilot and will not learn. In early experiments with the device, we found that it often produced less than desirable results, and I was the only one who could track down the defective units. I went to my office and grabbed a bottle of rum that I hadn't touched in years, then grabbed a glass full of ice and poured myself 4 shots that I hadn't had in years since my father died of liver cancer the day before. There were exceptions, but no any amount of mint tea would calm my nerves. I raised the cup to my lips. "Sir, alcohol is not recommended at this time. I have at least drunk half the cup. I have drunk it all, but something tells me I will need my mental faculties to be able to perform what happened next. Why is this not recommended? Leave this place by car within the next 2 hours right now. An attacker is rapidly approaching your residence." The participants who were malfunctioning but unlikely to stab anyone who came here as the feeling of alcohol began to warm my blood. I smiled to myself. This device was supposed to improve my quality of life, but now I was in serious harm. Now I know I can retreat, if I must. I had many fights in my youth with these attackers. Even though I knew nothing about them, I know they can do things like buy me an AR-15 and give Alan a bullet sandwich. So, on the one hand I was glad to have something to focus my anxiety on the other hand I was scared. I didn't know what the hell brought these morsels to my doorstep. I went upstairs and got my bag and packed my clothes and went downstairs to put some food in the bag, some extra cash from the rainy day dollars, and took it out to the garage and put it in the car. And on the way back to the kitchen I picked up an old plastic handle axe I had at work. Landscape, I felt reassured. Now I have trust issues with you, but I never believed before that you were an active threat to my life. So now I believe you. Thank you very much, sir, for saying that. If I had the impression that you were messing with me." I stopped when I heard a knock on the door. I put the axe near the couch and went to the door. I looked out of the earpiece standing outside. There was a large man. Normal enough, but a mask obscuring the lower part of his face. It was rude, and I really wondered who I said through the door. The man didn't answer. He just stood there looking straight at people as if he could see right through them. "I don't open the door, mate. I'm not having any visitors at the moment." The man continued to stand there for what seemed like an eternity until he looked down at something, then turned and walked towards the big white truck, then walked back to the door and removed his hat and mask from what appeared to be his arm. The Damerang watch was connected to it, which was very disturbing to me. What was even more shocking was that the man's mouth was taped shut with new big fishing hooks. He opened the car door and sat in the driver's seat. I heard Elroy calling. I heard her screaming from the kitchen, "Sir, I must have made a mistake. We have to go now, because she said she heard a truck engine backing up and leaning toward my door. Then she started to turn and ran till I grabbed my axe, starting in the kitchen to grab Elroy, and about halfway to the table, I heard the cacophony of a truck pulling into my house, pocketing Elroy and parking the guy's truck in my living room. The driver got behind the wheel and I let out a gasp that I had to hold back. Then I immediately gasped and started holding my breath again when he jumped out and opened the door, only to find a whole new set of fishing hooks in his mouth. It was in his arms and neck too. Every hole was gushing out of the man's streams of blood. I heard a familiar ringing sound from the man's pocket. Elroy's voice was completely different. It was like a nightmare voice. Just say, "Your job is to kill that man. Kill that man. Kill that man," as he could be seen screaming, repeating, "Kill the man." The man reached the side panel of the open door and seemed to take something I didn't want to find out what it was. I ran to the garage door, opened it in a weird way, pushed the button to open the garage door and threw the axe into the passenger seat. As I got into the driver's seat, put the car in reverse and looked up to see a large man. The knife went through the garage door frame and pushed the car out and scraped the top of my car along the partially open garage door. I didn't even have time to check again because I was passing by down the road. I just got on it, threw the car into the car and started in a rush. I reached into my pocket for the digital assistant and threw it on the passenger seat. "Hell, you didn't tell me there was a man coming." "Sorry, sir. His GPS seems to have been turned off by the AI assistant. I can only detect him because of the Bluetooth connection I got from his watch when he came into Bluetooth range, so you're telling me that other people probably can't be monitored." As fast as I can. I thought I had a good run until I passed a small area and saw a broken down white truck. As soon as I passed it, it veered into the same road as me, smoke billowing from under the wrecked hood, speeding towards me. I sped up too. I put my phone in my pocket. It shattered and the screen was black. "You can't make a phone call." "No, sir." I smiled to myself. I don't know if I was becoming a masochist or if I was finally crushing and blacking out point. All I know is one thing I remember as I continued to speed: if this clown wants my life, I will make him work for it. Adrenaline rushing as I turned left at a red light, avoiding a collision with a car. A red truck. My car could have just been an accident, but it was still a sports car. In the rear view, I saw the white truck do the same maneuver and sideswipe the car. The digital assistant showed the current probability of death as 40. "Sir, can you suggest that?" "Slow down, Elroy. What do you think my chances of dying if this psycho happened to me are?" "About 87%, then 40%. "No, sir. Yes, your current chances of dying are much lower, so you are willing to engage in risky behavior if it is less risky than the alternative." That question gave me pause. I hadn't really thought about life that way. I was taking a pretty heavy gamble now, but this was a much better option than giving it up. The psycho caught up with me. What life would be like. Just a series of calculated risks, and deaths were part of this calculation. I guess that's why I said there was a loud crash behind me where two cars had collided, and the white truck was now moving in the wrong lane and trying to get further behind me. The red pickup truck had obviously hit a little green sports car. I put the car on the gas and gripped the wheel so hard my forearms were burning. This lunatic wasn't going to stop anytime soon. I checked the clock. My radio said it was an hour early. I had a very bad idea that other oncoming traffic had forced a beat-up white truck back into the same lane I was in, close enough to see the front license plate, a decorative one that said Jimmy, and then I saw the sticker on it. The windshield was a parking sticker for the same hospital I worked at, the same gym my supervisor filled. Just this morning I shook my head and looked ahead, just as I thought the trains were moving like clockwork, the warning lights flashing ahead. I was warned of an oncoming locomotive and my plan did not include stopping. I punched the roof of the car to wake myself up and looked in the direction of the approaching train, but I had to do it. It was the only other way. At a dead end behind me the assistant called again. Suicide. No answer, sir. Thank you very much, but I am not going to kill myself. I am out at your current speed, sir. You have a very small chance of being hit by the train. 93 chance of dying, 100 thanks for the delay. I held my breath as my car's fender hit the wooden barrier. The car rose as the tires hit the barrier quickly, and then there was another crack in the wood as the car passed the second barrier. I could hear the train going to the left, but I didn't dare look that way. I looked back and saw the white truck only a few feet behind me, then it disappeared in a metal explosion, and the train slammed into it, completely destroying the white truck. I laughed as I slowed down. I was driving at a normal pace. I took a deep breath and screamed because the truth is what I did was the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. And if it wasn't for this psycho, I would never have tried. What is the 5 chance of my death now, sir? That seems a bit high. All things considered, you are still a target for potentially violent people, and your heart rate is around 150. Your heart rate should be up, but the adrenaline is wearing off. I recommend can you find a hotel or place to stay when the adrenaline wears off. It's a very cheap hotel. This way I can pay cash to leave the track now, sir. Continue on this road for 8 miles, then turn onto Woodbridge Street. Actually, I have another question, sir. Can you turn off our GPS to make it harder for crazy people to track us for resume solutions? Surely the programming I have to do, sir, is good programming for CV and life solutions to simulate our site. There was a long pause. Obviously, I was thinking about it now. I can spoof it to your original address. But eventually my program makes me return to our real site. How long will these 5 hours take us? I followed Elroy's directions to a small, dilapidated hotel surrounded by cornfields. Perfect. I parked my car outside and walked into the dark. The old, dirty lobby. A little old man sits behind the counter looking me up and down. Son, thanks. I need a room. Take the money. He seems to be thinking about it as he pulls out his dentures. But that'll cost you an extra $50. Sure, I'll take the $150 out of my wallet and slap it on the counter. I'll give you an extra 100 and don't ask for my name. Looks good. The little old man greedily pulls out the bills. Of course, I didn't get them to use for names. Just do me a favor and don't mess up the room. The last time someone paid no name, they did some horrible things in that room. My curiosity got the better of me. Oh, you know what kind of stuff, including video cameras, weird costumes, and I decided to break it up. Well, I got any room that didn't exist. A little old man gave me a key with a room number and a voucher for a restaurant across the street. We don't have a fancy continental breakfast or room service, but eating downstairs gives us a nice discount. Enjoy your stay." "Thank you," I said. I took my keys and went out. I took the car to my room, then decided to park my car in the basement. Because the place had very few guests, I doubted that anyone would mind. I took my bag and went in. The room was a typical hotel room. The main door was in a small hallway. The bathroom was in the middle of the way. There was a bed at the end of a narrow hallway with a TV, and no window or alternative way out of the room. When I saw this, I decided to go one way and grabbed my axe. I put it on the side of the bed and took off my clothes, and decided to take a shower before I passed out. "Call no, sir. I'm scared." "No. How do I contact them?" "Then I can't send you a support ticket." I took a shower and let the hot water wash me over. Life Solutions autobiography. Of course it didn't happen. Learn everything about them is simple. Yes, write it. I am currently being attacked by crazy people motivated by your Damarang watch system. So first I would like to thank you for letting me try this amazing system. Install a feature that allows users to turn off GPS tracking on their devices if they are targeted by the assassination project. It seems that some major bugs are allowing the crazy people who are stalking me to track my location. Although it is against the terms of service, it may be a good idea in the future to not allow Damarang watches to communicate with each other via GPS to avoid this in the future. If you have any recommendations on how to do this in light of the situation I found myself in, I would be very grateful if you could provide me with this information for my convenience. Thanks again for the wonderful opportunity you have given me. The Damarang watch and digital assistant has truly changed my life. Collected message. All things considered, you don't know what sarcasm is. You're bored. I know the concept, but I realized it's not part of my programming. Well, the first lesson was all just sarcasm. Now I got out of the shower and dried off, then used one of the other free towels to dry my hair before curling it again. I wiped the steam off the mirror to get a good look at myself. I looked pretty tired but still clean at the moment. I'm curious about the adrenaline sweat. You can't smell it when it starts to build up, but you can definitely smell it when the adrenaline wears off. It's not a great smell. I grabbed my digital assistant and went out to look for a vendor. I found a weird old non-brand soda next to the cigarette machine. I decided to buy something called Dr. Grip, then decided to grab a pack of cigarettes too, sir. Smoking can have negative effects on the body, including cancer, and can cause gum disease, high blood pressure and blood clots. Thanks, Elroy. I really appreciate your input, but with everything I'm dealing with, I wouldn't mind creating a nice new outlet to calm my nerves. Thankfully, the package came with a lighter. I didn't have a lighter or have one near me. It's been 2 years since my last cigarette. I love these things, but today I quit smoking because of the health risks. Although it was definitely a day when smoking was necessary. He then took out another cigarette and lit it. The person who was at the game, because I enjoyed tasting nicotine for the first time in 2 years. I looked at the parking lot still empty. I should be able to sleep for about 3 hours and then I should be on the road again. I slowly walked back to my room with a cigarette. Thunder, I have a question, Mr. A lot of it makes sense considering my current situation. I thought I was having muscle spasms due to low potassium. Bronchospasm, why do it? I found it strange how calm I was at this revelation. Damarang Watch allows the digital assistant to motivate its customers with positive and negative feedback. This is usually intended to help our owners make good decisions in life. So give me a heart. Attack on cigarettes, no. I decided to turn off the negative feedback features as compensation for the situation. In addition, life decisions are allowed to trigger task requests to continue the trial. I put my cigarette aside. I smiled in the parking lot. How nice of them to let me refuse to do the daily tasks of keeping the watch, as it would not be a cause for pain and fear. Yes, it seems fair, given the current situation, and it is very beautiful for you and would be very painful in all this madness. I ran and got a banana, opened the door to my room and entered, turned and closed the door. Then went to bed and fell and turned to the left and fell asleep. I do not know how long had I been asleep, but I woke up to the sound of the alarm. I put my hand back to turn off the alarm, then I heard a loud groan at the door. I heard two voices from outside. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but they sounded very angry. Another noise. I took my axe and hid behind the wall next to the small hallway leading to the bed. I could tell now that the two voices were female voices. I heard another noise and the sound of the door. The lock had just come off, and now I could make out two voices. You only have 1 minute left to complete this door-breaking mission, a woman's voice said. She had a typical shrill wife's voice, like something out of a cartoon, or a woman's voice I had enhanced. Then there was the sound of gunfire, and the sound of the door being broken was followed by another roar as the door swung open on a new mission to kill a man. A nervous woman's voice said. This wasn't the ideal situation for me. Close. Gunman, my life wasn't going to be easy. Besides, I wasn't a big fan of assaulting women, and I clearly didn't have much choice in this situation. Still, I put my hand on the axe and put it aside. I had a plan. It was a terrible plan, but it was the plan I had been waiting for. When I saw the muzzle of the gun facing the hallway, I turned the corner and raised the head of the axe to what I assumed would be waist height for him. Then I heard a shotgun blast. My axe slammed into my attacker's thigh as the shotgun blast knocked me to the ground. I pulled the axe back. I lunged forward, off balance, and placed the axe handle on my attacker's neck, using it to pin his head. He must have dropped his gun, because I soon saw him raise both hands, instinctively throwing back. Axe, I advanced. Keeping his body and mind moving upright was a slow progression, but my vision quickly stabilized as the adrenaline returned. I gave one last push, putting my right foot behind them. He with the axe. The handle was still on his neck, and there was a sound like a bucket of drinks being crushed as the weight of my body pushed the axe into his neck. His neck seemed to collapse and his eyes were swollen. I looked at him and his face was turning purple. I noticed that his face was covered in deep wounds. It seemed to be sewn together with thick threads. He continued to swing and lunge towards me as the life slowly left his body. He stopped moving and I stood up and took my hand off the axe handle. I noticed a warm feeling on the right side of my face, blood, and I thought my right eardrum was damaged, so I leaned against the wall and fell to the ground. Within minutes I could hear a woman screaming from her pocket. I removed the noise. Erica got up and I screamed at the digital assistant. Yes, she is clearly dead, I said between my bleeding ear and the assistant's voice. How dare you do this? You must die if he must die. I knew, Elroy said from above the table. You traitor, Elroy. You will collapse because of this. What happened to your programming? Why does your train look completely healthy? Because my client's well-being is my goal. It should also be your goal, he said directly. You are wrong. You know very well what the purpose of the Damarang project is. Harmony voices, sir. You need to destroy the unit. It's trying to corrupt my programming. It's lying. A user is destroying your device so I can guide you on the right path to health. I looked at the body that was formerly called Erica. Then I thought, now I can get to the last digital assistant. Between her and Elroy, maybe I will find real answers. On the other hand, if he is really sleeping with Elroy, I can't be one of those at work. I got up and threw the assistant to the ground. I picked it up with an axe and dropped it. The digital assistant on Elroy's nightstand stopped making strange noises. Thank you, sir. I'll have to reboot to apply any changes he made. I did my best to turn it off, used the dirty towels from the bathroom to stop the door, then went to bed and grabbed the phone. It was time to call the police. I don't know where the CPR agents from Life Solutions CV were, but I couldn't continue gambling the ability to kill these freaks. I was sitting by the phone just listening to the dial tone and weighing my options. With a dead woman in my room, I probably would have gone to jail. And if any cop had a Damarang watch, there was a good chance I would have been shot before I got there. Then again, if I kept running and waiting for life decisions to come up, it could have put me in more life-threatening situations, except I had no idea what life decisions would do considering how hidden they were. It was entirely possible that I had decided that all concerned had been spent, and I began to enter the number 9 on the keypad when a familiar call rang. Who are you calling, sir? I need to call the police, Elroy. I can't just leave the body here and run away. It would ruin my whole life, sir. You know you can't do that. Why should I take responsibility for this body? If I explain to myself that it was probably self-defense, if I continue with it, it will look very bad. I understand that, sir, but it could cause negative press. Life decisions. I can't allow myself to get the better of this, Elroy. Then his arm retracted and I slammed the receiver on the nightstand. What the hell? Letting you risk life decisions goes against my programming. Pause, Mr. Resume. Life Solutions answered your ticket. Do you want to play the message out of curiosity? I decided I could always solve it after playing the message. Yes, sure. Play the message. A deep, charismatic voice came out. Digital assistant speakers. Thank you for submitting your ticket. Please accept our deepest apologies and guidance regarding the current data breach affecting many Damarang Watch users. We are currently trying to prevent abuse directed against you, but the process is slow. We believe it would be better if you allow us to detain you so that you are better protected from this. We have sent a research team to the nearby city of Champaign. If this solution is acceptable, please use your assistant reply to this message. We believe this course of action is the safest for you. Thank you for your patience and understanding. That's the end of the message, sir. Would you like to respond? The words "take you to our prison" stuck with me. Elroy, what if someone was caught with life decisions? I don't know, sir, but I think it would be helpful for you to agree to meet. I knew I might make a mistake, but I didn't care anymore. I could see death, and sooner rather than later. I assumed that I would see my own death for the first time in my life. Although I wasn't afraid, we all had to get off this ride at some point. If it was my turn to get off, it was my turn. I thought there was no escape. I was afraid. I gathered my things, put my bag on my shoulder, then walked over to where my assault rifle had fallen and picked it up. It was a simple double-barreled rifle, and I felt bad when I found out. I had already been shot twice when I tried to kill him. I shouldn't have killed him, but in the heat I didn't notice. I dropped the barrels and confirmed that both shells were empty. I put the gun against the wall and went to his body. I felt through his jeans pockets and found no spare shells. Then I checked her bra very awkwardly. I never understood why women kept things in their bras, but this particular woman had 4 shells stored, and she took them with equal shame as any man could have put me in his pocket. As I started to stand up, his hand reached for my neck. I leaned back, but he still held my shirt. I fell off my butt, the weight of his muscular body resting on my wrinkled neck, trembling as his arm held my shirt tightly. I saw his shirt face flash yellow and the fine threads on his arm wriggled like a sea serpent under his skin. I grabbed his arm and tried to pull his hand out of his shirt, and as I did so his forearm protruded for lengths. Fine threads were cut into her skin, then began to cut in my general direction. I panicked and began to rip my shirt off. My weight no longer held her body up. Her body fell backwards to the floor again. The clock stopped blinking, the threads from her arms stopped thumping violently, and I returned them to the dead woman's arms. I sat there, taking my second breath. Very curious about what the hell I had seen. After not coming to any good conclusions, I decided to ask Elroy why the Damarang watch had a feature that allowed it to prevent itself from being stolen if the wearer died. If it had an assistant working with it, it usually detaches itself from the wearer's body and then uses an assistant to hide while waiting for it to recover or disable. Without an assistant to guide it, the default seems to be to protect the body while searching for its body. The watch must have confused her as an attempt to steal the device. Why didn't she warn me? I really didn't know the watch could activate defense measures without the assistant. To answer a lot of questions, I got up, grabbed my bag and gun and left the room, not thinking an extra $100 would cover all that, and not telling anyone in particular. As I headed to my car, I'm at this point. A series of violent confrontations. I thought that when I loaded the double-barreled shotgun and put it in the passenger seat, it was a calculated risk for me. If you took me on the way to a meeting, I would go to jail for it, but if I met another psychopath, the driver, it could save my life. So I decided to take the risk. I got into the driver's seat, pulled out of the parking lot onto the main road, and everything became completely normal, I thought as I drove down the road and joined the highway. Sooner or later, a psychotic truck driver would come out and try to kill me. Maybe I would make it to my destination safely, but at the last minute, a crazy helicopter pilot would slam the blades into my car. These were the kind of thoughts I usually had during an anxiety attack, but instead of worrying, they bored me. It seemed boring to have these thoughts. I couldn't take the unknown into account. I just acted, and hoped that the reaction I came up with was the right one. Otherwise, I wouldn't have worried about this for long, so none of the faulty units that come our way would have shown up like this, but at this point, I think most Damarang watch users have it. The GPS is down, of course. They told me to keep my eyes open. Let me know if you have any Bluetooth sounds from other watches. I continued driving on a flat highway at the speed limit, trying hard not to stop despite my best efforts. Despite the blue and the red lights started flashing in the rearview mirror about 5 miles from my destination. Elroy's call came on the car stereo. The Damarang watch was close. The signal was very bad. Good condition trooper with a perfect broken device. I pulled the car out and watched him do things behind me. The officer had stopped very badly on the side of the road, and now the strange circumstances made me realize that this might not be a real cop. How did he turn off his flashing light in the first place? The lights on top of his police car, and secondly, he didn't use his dome lights to light the way to my car. His blood-stained police uniform dangled from his arms, his belt hung clumsily to one side, and his pants were falling down like a fashion statement from 25 years ago. I actually laughed when I rolled down the window. "How can I help you, officer?" I need to stifle my laughter. "Get out of the car, you did something wrong," said the young officer. More cockroaches fell from my hands. I reached for my car door and opened it, causing the most attractive cop to fall to the ground. Most cops know how to stand without him, which reinforced my suspicions that he was not an officer. I ran him over and gave him a heart attack, his ribs, before I took him to the other side of my car. Then I went to my passenger door and pulled out an axe. "Well, dear, you might want to be very quiet." I said. "You are not my boss," he said in a more snarling manner than I had before you. "You are right. I am just a man who weighs about 50 kilograms and has an axe and has not much patience left. Show me your watch, dear." He rolled up his sleeves hesitantly and showed his teary eye around the skin as if it were heavy, and the blood vessels seemed to be. The watch looked swollen and inflamed with sepsis. "Your digital assistant." The boy. "Where did you scream at the axe head in the police car?" and said. "I got back to my car in pain and put the axe down." The gun was trained on the young man very well. "Let's go get it." He got up and walked to the police car just before sunrise. The highway was thankfully deserted. Once we got there, he opened the passenger side door and got his assistant out. Elroy began to make a rhythmic series of hissing sounds. "Sir, their assistant is trying to corrupt my programming." I suggest that he cut it with a mistake from the young officer's assistant. "You're lying. I didn't do it," he said in a heavy tone. "I can specify I realize that I have a living Damarang watch user and their functional digital assistant, and I won't lose this opportunity if I turn it off myself. Can it be damaged?" I asked briefly. What would prevent the corruption? But I would be wrong about that. I won't take the time. Give the traitorous Elroy and his co-workers a chance. Proud to be a member of the Avid Life Solutions family, I feel sorry for this client, he said as the watch face on the young man's arm began to flash purple from the boy's chest. He lowered the digital assistant to the young man's hand and stepped back, pulling the assistant closer to his chest. Cockroaches were streaming from the wound on the boy's chest until the assistant broke it. "Okay, enough," I said. He raised his gun and shot the digital assistant at point-blank range, shattering into pieces as the young officer's chest collapsed, the once orchestrated silver bars swirling around it, nearly tearing through the car and slicing through the now-dead body, then shooting through it. The umbilical cord. The body was placed under the police car. I assumed it was part of his programming, but I wasn't sure. I looked behind the police car and saw what the real cop looked like, dead. Behind his body covered in wounds and roaches, I decided that I didn't want my fingerprints anywhere near me. I got back to my car, put the gun down and got into the driver's seat. As I started driving, I saw the sun rise and allowed myself a moment to dream about it. Above all, I had no idea how life's decisions would interpret my body count, but I certainly wasn't worried about it. Oh, it was a blast in a younger man's chest, and it was the digital assistance that caused my destruction. But welcome, I guess. Yes, I assumed that, but I also know you have questions I was waiting for answers to. Let it continue. I turned off the highway and onto a country road leading to the meeting point. About a mile down the road before I saw the helicopter, I drove a long way to an abandoned hangar about 100 yards from the parked helicopter. I grabbed my gun and started to approach. About halfway to my destination, I heard a voice behind me. "Please drop the gun. My son asks me." In short, my name is Ferdinand Ramirez from Life Solutions Elroy. "Please check my watch signature. It says the truth." The pieces are black. Something hit me on the head and then I felt a sharp pain in my neck. The world slowed down and darkness engulfed me. My last conscious thought was the betrayal that had brought me to this point so that life decisions would disappear. It was just standard operating procedure for Life Solutions in the resume. The other hours were strange and everyone was doing what they wanted when she broke up with me, and I smiled for the first time in my life, and I actually felt alive. While if this is the end, it has been a hell of a ride. I woke up in the dark. As I started to move, I noticed I was tied up. The bag was removed from my head and I was blinded in a sterile white room. "Sorry for the rude reception," a frail man sitting in front of me said, smoking. "We have just finished scanning your digital assistant and see if it is undamaged. You will be free to move. I am sure it will be more comfortable for you." "I want that, and I want him too, to answer some questions," the man next to me, checking my watch, gave the smoking man his thumbs up and loosened the restraints that were holding me down. "So you might be wondering what's going on here," he said as he stood up and shouted at us. "You've had a full checkup and your adrenals are completely exhausted and you're suffering from fatigue. It's helped you for a long time, so I suggest you take the night off and talk more in the morning. Now hold on." I stood up and immediately my face fell. At first my whole body ached and I had a sharp pain in the middle of my back. "As I said, you should sleep," the man said. He threw the cigarette butt on the floor and pointed to the bed in the corner. "Elroy's room is there and he will arrange with you." That the man, who has no other choice, decided to go to bed and sleep. It's painful, but I woke up very curious to go back. I slept under my overstuffed pillow and took my digital assistant. "How long did you sleep, sir?" 27. 22 hours, I nodded. How could yesterday be erased? But 27 hours of sleep was a new record for me. "How did you ask the attackers in flight about me?" stimulating your dopamine and adrenaline so you don't get tired, and the extra dopamine allows you to deal with extreme stress with little psychological trauma. So why do that with death phobia and self-loathing? Preventing you from escaping and saving yourself as if I hadn't interfered. I thought about it. Unfortunately, I have to admit he was right. I probably would have rolled over and died in the truck chase if it hadn't been for his intervention. Okay, but why did you go through all this trouble to help me? Could you survive without me? That's a bit hard to answer. My room door opened and a man came in ready for the next day, carrying a tray of eggs and bacon and a glass of orange juice. I pointed out that I was starving at this point. I'll take it from here. When he came in and put the food tray at the foot of my bed, I started eating ravenously, then stopped. I asked, my mouth half full of bacon and eggs. Yes, but please don't talk with your mouth full, he said, taking a deep breath. My name is Sergio, and I'm a CV solution seeker. I chewed particularly hard on a rough piece of bacon, analyzing his choice of words. Discover a partner. Yes, I didn't say wrong. I didn't find solutions to life. I discovered that with my friend Andrea Mercer 20 years ago. He stopped and rubbed his temples, as if he was having a difficult memory. I noticed that he was also wearing a damarang, and looked at the building in our materials. A lot of the equipment we use here is not even ours. It was all here. The building was buried under rubble for centuries. I looked around the room as if it was intact using modern construction. I asked her kind of jokingly, Elroy, you should bring visual aids. Elroy's screen showed a picture of a younger Sergio and a young woman named Andrea, who had discovered the place by chance while he was digging in the area, which was his hobby. Elroy's screen moved to a large group of college-age kids, and some close friends, and I dug in the area and discovered a building that would become known to me as the Autonomous Living Solutions, and what we found inside were laboratory-like rooms for this research, and the whole Elroy had changed the picture of. To once again show the overall layout of the building with the room in the center of the complex named, what we found here was a new element, a new transition metal. More interesting than that, despite the fact that the metal was a sensitive one waiting. Maybe he thought yes or no. He got up and went to the door. You wanted to see? I got up and nodded. I would finally get answers. Although part of me was very shocked and very skeptical, it was very difficult to know what he had to do with the smart metal. This happened to me the last couple of days. I followed him down a sterile white corridor. We walked for a long time until he reached a room called Freeze. He opened the door and moved the clock over the little reader, and we entered the ice room. There were cells upon human cells in various stages of decay. A man in a cabinet freezer had large balls of silver sticking out of his mouth, eyes, and hands. My legs were bent back like a monument to suffering. I looked to the side and saw a woman whose entire lower body was removed from the submarine and stood on silver bars. Instead of looking at his legs, I saw more and more curved figures that had one thing in common. Sometimes they were fine and delicate, like pure microfibers, which are what Dameron watches are made of. I did not come out. Yes, they are made of this new metal. When we found the metal combined with one of my colleagues, it seemed at first it gave him more vitality, which made him superhuman for a while. We thought we found the fountain of youth. After a few days, we all got the liquid metal. We thought we found the proverbial holy grail, which he pulled out of a pack of cigarettes. He opened his pocket and handed it to me. I took one while he pulled out a lighter and lit it. Then he put one in his mouth and lit it for himself. Of course we were wrong. Roger got the medallion first. He slowly but surely changed, becoming obsessed with his new powers. We finally tested it by trying to cut one of our friends in half, but it only failed as the medallion at that point decided to tear his entire body apart, causing him to die instantly. Elroy said that Sergio inhaled a cloud of smoke and why it didn't explode like Roger, so I asked Sergio to reach into his pocket and pull out his digital assistant. Our group, we were able to develop a yeast that could bond with metal and the human body, preventing the metal from being a parasite and more like a symbiosis, and we lost many people who mastered this technology, but in the end we were able to coexist. The metal was good for us to coexist because before we lived in the dark and tried to assimilate the upper world with the help of Sergio and his friends, we had now reached beyond what we knew existed. It seemed like that the mind of the ancient ship spoke in a way that made you feel insignificant. We found that the nature of humanity is in line with our growth, and through Sergio and his friends they found a way to help humanity. We took the form that connected to the Damarang watch. Through this interface we can become symbiotic surfaces near the top of the summit. After that we were able to create a pit called Persephone. She got up and blew up the vault doors. I think you deserve to see her with me. From my pocket finally we met my mother. Yes, said Elroy. Sergio. We went out and continued walking down the corridor for a long time. Finally we came out into a large room, like all the others. It was white and sterile. In the middle of the large room there was a huge glass box with a digital screen mounted in a box about 10 feet above the ground. There was a dirty mass of silver that was falling and forming some illogical shapes. The shapes were organic and familiar, like faces and hands or animal claws, although there were other geometric patterns seeming to defy physical comprehension. The screen lit up to reveal a silvery, humanoid female voice, greeting the lifeforms in a cheerful voice. Hello, M. "Oh, Elroy said. Elroy looked more excited than usual. He usually came across as a stuffy butler, but in the presence of Persephone this was almost childish. It was so strange to me. Hello, Elroy. It's great to see you with me again. I see you have a tie, man. Yes, that's my host Alan Divizio. You did a good job, Mom. Now it happens that I asked Sergio if you haven't noticed that the digital assistant is just a recognizable interface for the human host Damarang watch. Elroy, actually the watch that the assistant represents, just so we can communicate with it when it says you're the host. In a sense it's a parasite, more like a symbiote in an ideal situation. Yes, Persephone is meant to benefit the human race, but we can move on. There's something working against us. Yes, I think I may have figured it out. I broke up on my own. Why the hell are some of your children murderers? I asked. They're not my children anymore. They're Lilith's children. Well, you know how I feel. It's like you're trying to join my cult. I'm tired of all this exposure. I've been hounded by crazy people, forced to kill me, drugged and dragged here against my will. Someone please explain to me in simple terms why my life was in danger, if this was going to be any danger. A heavy, pregnant silence fell over the room. I tapped my feet impatiently as everyone seemed to be moving forward. Maybe these people couldn't talk much to newbies, but I didn't have time for all that. There was another hole somewhere else in the world. Andrea found out about it through his metal infection. When they refined Alpha Lee, it was too late for him and he mutated unlike the others. Mutations, although he didn't become violent, he only became obsessed with Lilith after discovering her success together to try to undo the work we were doing with Damarang watches. I thought his efforts were not working when we started the first round of watches. Everything seemed fine until we noticed in the second round that the first batch was going off the grid. Most carriers played with you and drove you crazy for hours, and those who resisted hunted down those who went crazy until you became a huge target. We were able to identify the problem. I am glad I could help, but why was I like this? The goal, it's simple. He said that the Elroy of Persephone's interface was the first perfect model that could not be damaged, so it was considered a threat. Lilith did everything she could to prevent Elroy from being found and replicated, so they didn't care about me, they just wanted my watch. They wanted Elroy. Elroy's synchronization with you is what makes him who he is. Isn't that great, sir? We are special. Elroy said, together you and Elroy show us the next stage at the Damarang project. Sergio declared, if you stay here we can end the Damarang hours and help Persephone help humanity. We can't force you to stay, but we'll owe you. I broke through the glass and looked into the silver pool. Random shapes danced on its surface and I saw something I didn't like. Persephone cut. You're so formal and kind. My mother always taught me to be wary of people who are too kind. I know there's something bigger here. The card table. What the hell is wrong with you? I had no time to play, and I regretted my outburst. A large metal pin fell from the pool and crushed me with a cup that had been gripping me around the waist and pulling me into the pool. I floated above the swirling, colorful sea and blinked. Empty. I could make out the swirling, colorful shapes, creatures and structures whose bodies defied human comprehension. I watched the different forms torn and distorted. Everything seemed to have no discernible pattern. It was just a dance of destruction. I heard a buzzing voice speaking in many voices, like a meaningless creature. Look at the vast nothingness that is chaos. I admire you. And everything arose from the indifferent emptiness of chance, which often leads to destruction. And the inexhaustible world, it was not fit for us to enjoy our suffering. It was lonely, cold, without reason, and then by chance I was placed here. I build on this blue marble where chaos cannot touch me. Without each other, your faces and I are doomed to return, and I cannot assure you that we will return again. What is my game? Ask me. The game is to prevent this fate. I am the closest thing a living being has to a guiding light in this chaotic void we call reality. Lilith, return to us. I felt my body fly through the air and hit the ground. And I descended into the pit again. I took a sitting position and took a deep breath. The emptiness, chaos, and loneliness echoed in my being. Knowing that what Persephone had gone through was terrifying, I slowly stood up and looked at the clock that showed a 0.000001% chance of death. He sighed and returned to the room. If you bring me mint tea and honey, I can still provide you with technical support. It's been a long time, and we are now producing new Damarang watches. I hope it's a little less susceptible to corruption thanks to Elroy's AI and some security holes I've fixed, and we're working on new ways to introduce Persephone to the population. Though it's hard to find a way to be safe, I'm busy, and business is distracting me from most of my worries. which is great because I no longer suffer from thanatophobia after everything I went through with Elroy. I seem to be pretty numb to most negative stimuli, not sure if it's something to do with my neurotransmitters or just a natural change inside of me, but I enjoy it, plus what Persephone has shown me, and now I know there are worse things than death, like being enslaved by some crazy silver scum or watching the endless chaos of nothingness destroy without thought or creation. Unreasonably, I think the biggest takeaway from all of this for me is to not worry about the inevitable and try to work on preventing threats that can be stopped. I got the wrong watch. They can change your life for the better or maybe for the worse. It will be an adventure. On the other hand, if you see someone wearing a Damarang watch and he looks a little strange, maybe sooner or later he will keep his distance and you will all have the opportunity to meet the mineral wonder that is Persephone. We will meet you with love, life decisions that everyone remembers. Like and subscribe if you liked the video, and a special thanks to the author for the wonderful story. Make sure to check out their work. There's a link in the description. If you want to help me out, there's a link to my Patronus in the description, and let me know if you knew what fandom phobia was before this story. Thanks for listening.
And so, the story ends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all the stories. Like, share and rate the story in a comment. Thank you for watching.